welcome back to the Diamond Breakfast. We tap into a conversation around mental health with Justin and, of course, our guest.
Indeed, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and since its inception in 1949, Mental Health Awareness Month has been a cornerstone on addressing the challenges faced by millions of people across the world dealing with mental health conditions. Throughout the month of May, NAMI actively participates in this movement, a national movement that is dedicated to eradicating stigma, extending support, fostering public education, and advocating for policies that prioritize the well-being of individuals and families affected by mental health illnesses. This morning, our guest, who is part of this particular movement in Lucy Muthui, an advocate for mental health over in Kenya, is joining us via video conferencing. Good morning to you, Lucy. Thank you for joining us today on the Diamond Breakfast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right. Let's begin firstly with just talking about the major challenges that many Africans are facing when we talk about mental health as compared to the challenges that are being faced from other parts of the world aside from Africa.
I would say the biggest challenge I've seen is mostly in terms of access to mental health facilities and experts who deal with these issues. And in my space, I work in the media industry as a media specialist in content distribution. And you would probably say the film industry is one of the most affected sectors, especially post-COVID, because there was so many changes in the career spaces and how people are relating. But I'm not disputing that the same challenges that people experience across different industries and different spaces. But in our industry, I saw firsthand how people have suffered in terms of depression and different issues, and not having that availability of access to services. So that, I would say, is probably the biggest challenge that we have. And secondly is the lack of information and education, because I feel if some of this information is taught to us from a young age, we would be able to identify patterns of, changes happening to our loved ones. And sometimes you can watch a loved one just breaking apart slowly by slowly, and you probably don't know how you can help them. So that awareness and the lack of education is also a big challenge. And from a bigger scale is the policy level from our governments, how mental health issues are created from the Ministry of Health. Are there access to facilities that can push and propel people to seek help when they need to seek help?
Well, we know one of the things that has affected many, especially when we talk about the challenges that people are facing when we speak of things mental health, is the stigma that surrounds all of it. And I would like to, have you help us understand why we still get to see a lot of stigma that is affecting people that are dealing with mental health illnesses, because this is something that, is not done as such in other parts of the world. But here in Africa, amongst communities, the conversation around mental health is surrounded by a lot of stigma. What can you tell us about why this is the case?
I would say it's just the cultural aspects of it. And just giving an example of how we grew up and seeing families that had children who had different disabilities, even mental disabilities, how they were handled. Even in our schools, we never got to interact with children who had these problems. And they're always isolated to different schools, or people don't know even where to take these children. Like now, there are so many facilities coming up to help neurodivergent children and all that. But even in our curriculums in schools, they don't create that awareness and education so that children, as they grow up, they're able to know that there are other children who are different and this is how you treat them. So there was that tendency also to hide those children who had different challenges like so. So I would say that would be maybe the foundation of the issues that we see now, because that education was not there from the beginning. And I'm slowly seeing at least that is changing. And thanks to the internet now, there's a lot of awareness and education. And I would challenge everybody, before you judge or before you know what to do. You can always learn, you can always ask questions. So the stigma mostly is just how we were, our cultures and how we were brought up. The other thing is how people with different mental illnesses are treated within our spaces. And that's why a lot of people keep quiet when they're going through different issues. And there's been a lot of conversation, especially on men and mental health. You see, I see a lot of women create spaces where they're able to talk and to engage and to share stories. But men, sometimes they don't find those safe spaces. Men will sit together and just laugh about football and, you know, all these side shows. But the ladies will be like, hey, you know, I'm going through this issue, and the other lady will share. So women, they probably is just how God created us, but we have those spaces that we create. So it would be great if we also find support spaces even in organizations. Organizations need to create spaces where people can share and feel their stories are shared in confidence. Because actually that's another point in terms of getting access to someone you can trust, because, you know, opening up to someone, it's not easy. If you're going through a rough time in your relationship, and how Africa is a very religious continent in terms of whether you're a Muslim or a Christian, and people find solace in these religious spaces. So if I share with my pastor that I'm going through this thing, and then on Sunday the topic is, you know, there's a congregant who shared on this. So confidence is really important to maintain trust with people in your space. So if you're entrusted with that authority for people to come and share your knowledge, it would be great. Also empower yourself. So the other thing is we need to empower more people in our spaces, whether in our jobs, our communities, because Africa is a community-based setup. So let us have those spaces where people can come and feel they are safe to share and provide that support.
Right. Lucy, I have a question. Just like we get to see today conversations around sexual reproductive health being part of school curriculums, do you think mental health should also be looked at from that aspect, especially because mental health, varies from individual to individual, but also it's got a lot to do with human behaviors as well, and bringing understanding to people?
Absolutely. I feel the education, if it started from the foundation level, it's really important, because that helps you to learn how do you handle failure, how do you handle different challenges that come out of life. And some mental health issues could be genetic, others are environmentally triggered, and all those kinds of things. So if our education helps us, especially to know how to support a loved one who's going through this crisis. So it creates that awareness that if I feel this, I'm losing focus, I'm losing the zeal for life, I'm feeling suicidal, I feel anxious. And also there's a problem of people self-diagnosing. Nowadays you just hear people saying, I am depressed. So we need also that awareness for people to learn to seek help, so that you have the proper channels to find the answers that you need. So yes, it's really important. The education, it doesn't need to be formally in the curriculum, even in our community setups, because every child has access to a parent. So if we empower parents, even from the delivery, there's postpartum depression when some moms get children and they go through that phase. And if they're not able to seek help, it can get worse. So it's really important that it's created as part of our education, and just creating a very warm environment for people to keep learning. And we may not go deeper into the different types of issues, because I'm not a medic, but it is good just to understand when your state of mind is not okay, then what do I need to do as a person? And also, it will be a challenge even for employers. Create those safe spaces in your organizations where people can, thrive. People have time to take breaks in between their work, and also providing a space where people can also grow in their careers. So it's a collective effort from everybody. Even you as an individual, you have a role to play in terms of what your mental health is. what kinds of food you're eating, what news do you consume virtually, even on TV, or the kind of people you surround yourself with. So we're also in control of the environment we create around ourselves. And now all the other issues coming into play, especially if you're in a toxic work environment, if you're not able to change it, then what is directly access to you is probably speak to your HR, or you can find different ways to deal around it. So it's also good to be very self-aware and to also find a way that you can seek help.
Well, many would say that it's easier said than done, having to create some sort of resolve to deal with your mental health on a personal level. But I would like to take this conversation in another direction, and specifically talk about how there has been this concern that just having access to mental health care here in Zambia, in some parts of Africa as well, is quite expensive. It's not cheap. And I would like to speak on what you think needs to be done specifically on getting to see mental health care, or access to mental health care is brought to a standard where many can afford this. And do we also have enough professionals that can assist in dealing with this problem?
I don't think we have enough professionals who are trained, because like in Kenya, I don't think every school is offering psychology classes and all that. But in 2019, there was a task force here in Kenya that was given the role of finding out the issues that people are going through. And at the time, there was a very high prevalence of suicide, and it's still a crisis as we speak, especially suicide among men. And so when you go back to the communities, as I said earlier, how can we empower these communities so that we see what are the triggers to these suicidal issues? And some of them can be stemmed to people lacking jobs, people lacking hope in life, and substance use and abuse. So if we go to the root of the issues that people are facing, and starting from there, and also empowering community leaders to also take up roles, not just to arrest people who are distributing drugs and all that, but also take up roles of how can we find mentorship spaces and opportunities for the young people, or even the older people, because this is affecting everybody. And people are now vocal of these issues. You'll find someone going through a crisis and then probably post something on their platforms, and it's always appalling to see the different diverse comments that you'll see. Either some people gaslighting this person, or you find others who want to stretch a hand and help. So that would be great when those spaces are provided, especially in the community levels, because as I said, Africa, we work in communities. We have actually every space you find people have a WhatsApp group for, let's say you stay in an apartment, that's a community in itself. And we are losing connection with each other, but we are connected on platforms. So I would say let's also be each other's keepers. If you see a friend or family member who's suddenly showing symptoms of these kinds of mental issues, then find a way, do your research, or find a friend who can help, so that it doesn't get to a point where it's a point of no return.
Well, let's conclude with this as we talk about May being Mental Health Awareness Month. I'd like to talk about some of the activities or mental health awareness campaigns that you have ongoing, and how impactful have these campaigns been, if that's yes, that you do have campaigns ongoing to raise awareness on mental health.
Yeah, thank you. That's really great, because I'm really proud to see of the progress that is being made in different spaces. Every time I open my WhatsApp update or my LinkedIn, I see there's a webinar going on, creating awareness on depression and different issues. So there are campaigns going on virtually. You can learn from each other. We can take points from each other from different countries. So that would be a great thing for us to do, is just learn, and creating that space for people to learn and share openly. So that's one of the things that's happening. And the other thing is There are platforms even within churches. They are creating seminars and different spaces where people can come and learn about mental health. So I would say, even everybody take the chance to just platforms to educate each other and just show some compassion and share love with each other.
Lucy Muthui, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the Diamond Breakfast.
Thank you so much for having me. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. That's our conversation there with a mental health awareness advocate based in Kenya, Nairobi, in Lucy Muthui, looking at all things mental health, and this month being dedicated to raising awareness in this issue that has unfortunately affected many across the African continent, and what is being done to raise awareness in dealing with this problem that has affected many. We take a set of commercials and we're going to get back. We continue the rest of the Diamond Breakfast.